Yeah, go ahead, Robert. Can you still hear me?
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm just
Okay.
waiting for the official go ahead. So glad that we could zoom into Petersburg today. So for those that don't know me, Robert Venables, I'm the Executive Director for Southeast Conference. Heather Holt is our care specialist. She has a number of different titles depending on what we need her to do that day. But no, she's been spending a lot of time on the Alaska Cares program and has had to deal with a lot of questions, and we'll go through kind of the outline and structure of the program, and then we'll open that up for questions and provide you some answers, and or else point you towards some other questions or resources for answers. One of the things that I would have done if Mr. Bittner's schedule had allowed is had him present the highlights from this. And I'm just going to go through this really, really quick. This has to do more with the federal programs. It's got a couple slides at the end that are of interest as well. And so I'm just going to kind of run through the SBDC is a great resource as well. So oftentimes when we have questions, we'll be referring folks to the Small Business Development Center so that they can help as well. They have a good grasp on the federal programs from SBA and have a good bridge to the state programs as well. So it kind of gives us some context of what's going on and some of the general information on the economic indicators that you know, are kind of staring us in the face at the local level. Kind of see it in a larger context for what's happening across the state as well. So as you can see here, there's about 46,000 Alaskans currently on unemployment. We know the industries that are hit the hardest. Many of you are in those industries. Leisure and hospitality leads the way. In Southeast, we know that the fisheries is equally hit. There's a combination of the ongoing slide on the harvest and returns, but also the markets that control the pricing. So some of the macro indicators that our policymakers look at when they're providing these programs, and of course the federal aid that came out in March, kind of have these programs in mind here, and we'll just kind of touch base on a few of those. And this is being recorded so that you can go back and take a look at this in more detail. A lot of businesses in Southeast did apply for either or both the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loans. And so you're familiar with these programs. There's some changes and tweaks that have been made as that has been extended. I think tomorrow is the deadline for this round of the PPP. But the first round, you can see Alaska, you can see the number of loans that have been made to the state, which really complicated things on the Alaska Cares program, because that's like the major indicator for eligibility is, did you apply and receive funds for the PPP or the EIDL? And we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. So this is the total PPP loans in both the rounds that went through. You can see where we're at. And by industry as well, you can blow that up and take a look. That's, you know, obviously the most went towards the healthcare industry as they were standing by to respond to the pandemic. The EIDL loans, that's been a little bit tougher to get into. There's been a number of loans that have been made to date, and that's being expanded as well. And you can see, you know, how those things are used in the loan requirements that were there. It was very liberally put out there, and sometimes businesses were finding the advances in their bank account without even asking for it. It's been the smoothest of rollouts, but anyway, the distribution, you can see almost 7,000 loans were made to the state, not heavily used as much as the PPP. So just some more general information about that loan program and its use and its requirements. It's nice to have it in just one spot sometimes to refer to. All this is discoverable in other places as well. I'm not going to get into the charitable giving incentives there. It's something that John might have spoke to. If it's of interest to you, you can certainly dive into that as well. And then I'm not going to dive into the State CARES Act fund because Heather has a presentation. We'll talk about that. But again, this is just part of his overall presentation. But generally, we know that Alaska got $1.2 billion. They set aside $290 million of that for businesses. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. The eligibility has been expanded, and it hopefully will be a lot more usable for businesses. And there's still some changes that we want to talk about ahead as well. So these are the local initiatives. I don't know if Petersburg has rolled out anything yet, but all of these communities have taken a portion of their community funds and put those towards helping businesses out in other ways than the Alaska CARES has been targeting. And then this is just a comparison of what's going on now as far as the versions of aid in the House and the Senate, how to compare that. If you're a real political junkie and you want to get into that, feel free to. It's going to change many, many more times, but it's kind of an interesting comparison there. But as you know, really the number one issue is that we've got to get the monies that we have in hand now out on the street. And so that's what Southeast Conference is working with the state on, is getting those Alaska Care funds rolled out. And so, and the other thing Southeast Conference is doing is working to put together the comprehensive economic development strategy that is a much longer term. It's our 5-year plan, and you've got folks there at the chamber and at the borough that are involved with that process. And so, if you've got input, you can work through those entities, or if you're a member, you'll be involved as well as we take a look at, you know, not only stabilizing to get through this pandemic, but how to plan for recovery and resiliency after that. And of course, we always, you know, when we're doing presentations in communities, we're, you know, talking to folks, advocating, you know, one of the best things you can do is support your local businesses. And obviously that is what your chamber is all about as well, to try to, you know, help our businesses that are employing individuals and collecting sales tax and keeping the economy going. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather, and she's going to run you through the Alaska CARES program and some frequently asked questions and point you towards resources. And then we're going to open it up for general questions. So Heather?
I apologize ahead of time for not having a picture of Petersburg. I'll try to fix that. I made it to the airport and that was as far as I got, and it was a gloomy day and we did not fly over your beautiful town. So I couldn't post what I had. It wasn't good enough. So what I've done is I've gone through and picked out what the changes are to the Alaska CARES Grant program. And I picked through what I've been hearing people ask about. And I do want you to know that everything that you see here and the Alaska CARES funding program informational sheet and checklist, as well as the FAQ, I would be more than happy to email that to you as soon as we're done here. And that is the best thing that you could have people do, is to read through that to understand. Everything you need is in that document. So the update, or the major changes to the Alaska CARES Grant, are that businesses that receive that $5,000 or less, of course, are eligible for the Alaska CARES Grant. Before, if you received any, you were not eligible. So any business receiving more than $5,000 have the opportunity to return those funds. So i.e., if your business received $6,000 in PPP funds, you could return 1,000 of it and then apply for the Alaska CARES Grant. So that's a major difference, opening this grant up to more small businesses. What we're finding is right off the get-go, money was made available through the EIDL and the PPP.
Hey, I'm on
So money was made available, and people, you know, understandably took what they could get. Some people, you know, EIDL money, maybe $1,000, but by accepting that money, they were not eligible for this grant. That has changed. So that's a major change. Also, the 501c6 nonprofits are now eligible, and addressing the commercial fishermen. So those who held and fished a limited entry permit or interim use permit issued by commercial fisheries entry commissions are now eligible. So those are the main changes as we started getting into this program and realizing some people were left out. So the Alaska Cares Grant yesterday, the new alaskacaresonline.org opened up. I'm sorry, .gov, and you're now able to go on that website. It is much easier to navigate and to apply through that program with the Alaska Cares Online. One of the major things, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, but you applied before. They won't let you go forward with this application if you missed anything. So you have to, as you go along, you have to answer the required questions. Otherwise, they won't let you hit next. So businesses that are now eligible under the new guidelines are able to apply now. And it's really essential that as the applicant is filling this application out, that they are, they're looking at it, they're reviewing it, and if they have questions as they go along, they need to write those down. They can call and check out any questions that they have. So with that, who can apply? So small businesses, the same, but now including those businesses that received a total of $5,000 or less from the SBA, PPP, or EIDL. Businesses on average, they have 50 or fewer employees, and you had to have a business license prior to March 11th when this was announced by the governor as a pandemic. Those are the major the hurdles that you'd have to cross to apply. Additionally, now commercial fishermen have been added. So this is a change here. So fishermen who held a limited entry permit, and again, I read this to you earlier, in 2019 and 2020, and including the embossed gear card. And they had to have participated in open fishery that produced income last year. There are some exceptions there that you can read. And fishermen whose primary business is commercial fishermen. So fishermen with on average 50 or fewer full-time equivalent employees, and fishermen that received a total of 5,000 or less. So those are the same things that the small businesses also have to follow. Also, nonprofits, and you can read more about that in the informational sheet. I think the ones that you're more interested right now are the small business and the fisheries. Some of the eligible expenses, one of the major ones is payroll costs and expenses. These are eligible to be reimbursed. And also the March 11th through the application date, and the application date 2 months after are eligible as future payroll payment. And now we have business owners, but we also have vessel owners, as we also include fishermen in this. So business owners, wages, commissions, incomes, or other net earnings, and they usually a 1040C from last year will suffice for proof. Also, same for the vessel owners. Cruise shares for each crew member, the amount awarded will be based on your 2019 earnings as reported on your 1099. So you would have received a 1099 from your employer. Employee benefits, including cost for vacation, family, medical, sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, etc. is listed there as well. State and local taxes assessed, and portion of payroll costs covered by unemployment insurance. Those are not eligible. That's the only thing that they pointed out. Other eligible expenses, any incurred during the eligible time frame and charged to a credit card or charge account, rent or mortgage payments, utility payments, PPE required by the business, business-related equipment, and expenses incurred to replenish inventory or reopening, not to continue your business during this time period, but those necessary items to reopen. And one thing I'd like to point out is if you go to the Alaska Cares Funding Program, when you go to the Department of Commerce for the state of Alaska, and you click on the informational sheet and frequently asked questions, go to the printable version, because the printable version, and I copied it, if you look at this, this slide right here for payroll, it shows payroll costs and expenses. The printable version gives you that information you see below. So it expands on what exactly that means. So when you go in and you look at utility payments and you look at the printable version of it, it's going to expand what exactly they're looking for. So an example would be under, let's say if we said utility payments, if you were to look at the handout, it would list everything from your TV to internet, your cell phone, etc. So it expands what each one of these listed here is to help you out. And if you need that, I'll be more than happy to send that to you. Common mistakes. The application portion, residential addresses are required. Optional are mailing addresses such as PO boxes. When they're listing the creditor, if it's a reimbursable payment or future expense, whoever is applying, the business that is applying is the creditor, and they need an address in there. The creditor is where the money is being sent to. So it's important that they understand that. And that's a mistake people are making. They want to be reimbursed for paying AELMP, for instance. Well, they paid that bill, so the creditor will not be AELMP, but it would be the business who's applying for the grant. You already paid it, you are the creditor, you want that money. Okay. The applicant has to be associated with a business. Valid IDs. They're applying, it requests some driver's license or some kind of federally issued passport or whatever document that you have, but people are leaving that out of the package. Also, if they're listed as an LLC or a corporation, they need a copy of the Articles of Organization and Certificate of Incorporation. So if you're an LLC, a single owner, limited liability company, or a corporation, they need to send that documentation in. If you have a business license, you need the current business license. And they also need the TIN if you're a business, or the EIN or social security number. That needs to be included. One of the things now, these are mistakes that have been made, and that has been corrected on the application at the new alaskacaresonline.gov. They won't let you go forward without that now. So some of these have been cleared up by doing that. Minimum amount requested is $5,000. The maximum is $100,000, and we've had people applying for $120,000 or above that amount in case some of the things that they applied for were not they were vetoed that, you know, that wasn't an eligible expense. So they tried to cover it that way. The amount that you list in your eligible expenses and that you have attached documentation for those receipts, that's the amount you're requesting. That has to match. So whatever it is you're requesting, you need to have documentation supporting that number. And we've had people putting what they would like to get and along with receipts of what they've already paid, but they have to match. On the eligible expense portion, the mistakes that they're seeing is if they are using the lease as an eligible expense, they need to have a signed lease agreement. Loose receipts should be copied prior to mailing them in with the application. They have been taking, for those people that are out there are unable to apply online, they have been accepting these. So they need to make sure all applicable receipts, invoices, and statements are included. Legible handwriting if you are doing that. It will slow the process down for you if you're sending it in, however. Do not write "see attached" on the eligible expenses. You need to fill it out. They now have drop-down boxes to help you out. The form is much more clear now of what you need, and they're not allowing you to move forward until you've got everything filled out. Only payroll-related taxes should be submitted. They don't need all that tax documentation. If you're asking for a reimbursement, you need the invoice that you paid, and you need proof that you paid it. And that could be as easy as a credit card receipt showing that you paid that, or a bank statement showing that you paid that. So anything from March 11th to today's date, you're probably looking for reimbursement. Is there any questions? Okay. Prompt response time to emails and phone calls will speed up the processing time. When you submit your application, they're going to send you an email saying that they have received your application. Then they're going to give it to a person, and they're going to have it along with many others. So be patient. If they have any questions, they will either call you or they will email you. And it's really important that you make sure you're checking your phone and your emails if you have one sent in. They are very good about calling and asking for additional information. If you have an item on there that is not eligible and they tell you that it's not eligible, it does not stop your application from proceeding forward. They just reduce that amount from the amount that you requested. So the application will stay in line. If it's just an item or two or three, if they go through it and there's some things that do not fall under eligible and they remove that, your application can still go forward. But you need to make sure you're checking your email and your voicemail and giving them a call back, and to help it continue forward. So review the checklists, the Alaska Cares funding program, the informational sheet and checklist. You can have that by you while you're doing this, but everything you need is on the alaska.commerce.gov/web. And you go down to the Alaska Cares Grant Program. The application is at alaskacaresonline.gov. And they also have where you can click on frequently asked questions or checklists or informational sheets. So everything is on there as well. Credit Union 1, you no longer go to cu1.org. If you do go in there, it does link you back to Alaska Cares Online. You'll have a place to click on that. So I didn't go through exactly everything that you needed. I just wanted to share the major changes to it, and also just encourage you to go on and look at the information and go to the alaskacaresonline.gov and begin that process. It's now open and available. The program will run until the earlier of either November 15th, the governor declares the state of emergency ended, or the program's cap is reached. So whichever is earlier. At this moment, that's where that stands.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I've got a vacation rental, and I closed it down this summer, and I had to cancel about $10,000 worth of people coming, but that doesn't, I can't go on that at all, can I?
No, you can't. Any income that we lost is not eligible expense.
Okay.
So yeah, it lists those out, that the payroll and the utilities. The utilities is a big one for folks right now. PPE, if anyone has purchased that, anything that required to start back up are the main things. But yeah, any income that we had hoped to collect is not.
And secondary income is just still off the books, right?
Yeah. Let me go ahead and close my screen here. Okay. I didn't lose anybody. Yeah, secondary income at the moment is not, you're not eligible to do that. Yeah, it goes off your primary.
It seemed like it kind of skipped us.
I know.
But
you know what, that is a group that, yes, I do understand. And individuals, I do have a client that I've helped that she is the sole proprietor, and she was able to sign up for unemployment and receive unemployment.
you know, I tried, and they rejected me for that too. So I'm just kind of, I guess I'm just gonna give up here now. So
Oh, don't give up.
well,
Never
I'm
give up.
exhausted.
Never give up. Is my
So,
share screen still up?
Let me just weigh in with a couple things right up front. So Southeast Conference is providing technical assistance and pointing folks to resources. We're assisting where we can, imparting the information that we understand at the moment. We are not the deciders. So, you know, the program processors are the ones that make those final determinations. The other thing is that right now the Department of Commerce has just rolled out a number of eligibility changes that expands the eligibility for quite a few businesses, and the fishermen was the biggest win for us. We were advocating for that for a long time. They were doing that based on their understanding of what their powers were under legislative intent. And so after the judge ruled that, it seemed like that power might be a little broader, and they're looking into that. But it sounds like there's a good possibility the legislature might come back in after the primary and take a look at some of the eligibility considerations. So there's a number of things that we would like to see changed with this program to expand the eligibility. And if the legislature comes in, that's our chance to do it. So whereas right now, like Sylvia, you seem to be froze out of the system, hang in there, because if the legislature does come in, then they can reassess the the opportunity to widen the eligibility to include perhaps secondary income, or just waive the PPP or EIDL, of any amounts. But right now, based on committee input and legislative intent, they've capped that at the $5,000 mark. So I just want to kind of put those broad outlines around the conversation today, and we're happy to take questions from anyone on any aspect of this.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is there anybody in Petersburg who's helping people do this?
Well, Cynthia's waving her hand.
Who is?
I am. I'm a grant writer, and as well as Sylvia, because I'm a part-time grant writer, a strategic planner. I wasn't able to apply to this, but I did for our fishing business. I applied. So
So who is this, and can you give me your number?
sure, it's Cynthia Wallace.
Oh, Cynthia, hi. Okay. This is Vicki Curtis.
Oh, hi. Okay. Do you want my number?
Yes, please.
208-995-7400.
Thank you.
And you could throw that into the chat box if you like. Of course, that was just recorded. Another thing too that Southeast Conference has discussed with the Chamber, one of the things we wanted to do is to make sure that, we got the information out there. A lot of this information is pretty self-directed, and you can, accomplish that. There are always complications or extenuating circumstances that prevent someone from, getting through it as quickly as they'd like. And if there seems to be obstacles, we've got the opportunity to zoom in like this. We can do it one-on-one. We can do another, town hall style chamber or community-wide events, or we're willing to come down to town to help do some one-on-one appointments as well. We're not going to fill out the application for you, but we'd certainly be able to help walk through the steps and the processes. And we've done that in a couple of communities, and we've mentioned that to the Chamber. So we're just going to kind of see if you've got a champion like Cynthia there, or others that can help you walk through there. We'll offer our support from afar, but we're willing to make sure that Petersburg gets every dollar that it can into the community to help the businesses survive to the next season.
Robert, can I ask a question?
Go for it.
Can we use this, as fishermen, can we use this money to pay crew hands?
You're asking how to use the money. I don't know there's any prohibition on how you use the money, but you're only going to receive the money based on the actual expenses. So I think
So say if I owe a crew member money right now, I haven't paid them, but I owe them.
Are they listed as an employee?
Yes.
Not a contractor. I'm not sure how they calculate that. So that's something that Heather can follow up on for you if you want to contact her. We can help get a more definitive answer to that, how they're handling payroll that's not been paid. But if it's on the books as owed, it certainly sounds like an eligible expense. So if you want to contact Heather, send her an email with that question, and we can get it better defined on how to list it, whether it gets listed as a reimbursable because it's a past expense, or if it's a future expense to be paid.
Yeah, because I don't know where the proof would be to, attach it.
Right.
So, okay, thank you.
So I missed the first part of the meeting. Can you tell me how far back the expenses go? Is it just back to March or earlier?
No,
March 11th.
March 11th
to your application date, and then 2
Okay.
months after the application date.
Hey, Robert or Heather, this is Dave. Hey, I helped a couple folks fill out the application when it first came out, and it seems as though a lot has changed. What would you recommend doing? Going back in and resubmitting an application, or going in and correcting the application?
Unfortunately, I don't think either is a choice for you. You pretty much have to wait until they contact you for curing those inaccurate submittals. And they're far behind. So it may still be a couple weeks before you hear from them.
Well, yeah, these were submitted like 3 to 4 weeks ago.
Oh,
So
Well,
I mean, they're wondering if it's even a valid thing. So I don't know what to tell. I do not know what to tell them, except to keep waiting. They did receive notification that they received the applications, but that was it.
and that's what they're gonna have to wait and find out. They don't, a double application would not be helpful. So they just need to wait and hear from CU1. Like Robert said, it's frustratingly slow at this time, but the best advice would just be what you gave them, just to hang tight and wait for them to contact you. And hopefully if there is something additional they need, it's not that much, and they can push it forward then. But the advice you gave is correct, just to have them wait.
Do they still just have 2 people doing this? That was my understanding.
Robert's question.
We've been told that CU1 has between 20 and 30 people working on this. So they are no longer taking any more applications, so they will get through this tranche. So they're focused solely on the 2,000 plus applications that came in since June 1. Now you apply directly to a portal at AK Cares Online. So those are going to a different team of processors, and then I think once CU1 catches up, they'll join the processing. So for new applicants, I would still say manage your expectations. It may not be quick because everyone statewide, including fishermen, now is a whole new class of applicants are piling on applications, but they will work through them, and you've got a place in line, and it appears that there's plenty of funds right there. So that's not an immediate concern anyway.
Yeah, I had a question, if you can hear me there.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, this is Scott Hersey, and I had I tried to apply earlier, but I talked to the helpline, and at the time I had an EIDL loan application in, but had not gotten any money, and they said I couldn't even apply because I had already asked for that other loan. But I just 2 days ago I got a denial letter from EIDL for a reason that I think something that didn't happen. But anyway, the previous application, you could download the application and fill it all out, and then you submitted it. But I went on the site this morning and started to try and do the application, the new portal. And I got through a couple pages, and then I had to leave, but I couldn't save it. I had, it just deleted everything that I had input so far. Is that, I mean, can you download it and fill it out ahead of time? Because there's a lot of information they ask for there that you might need to go running for and dig for. And so anybody have any experience with that?
I have
My
not.
question too.
Yeah, I haven't had experience with that. We went through that yesterday, but he had prepared everything for the credit, the credit union 1 application, which you could sit there and do it as you went. And so he had everything with him. So I didn't experience that. And I'm helping somebody here shortly to do theirs. So, when I went in to look at it, I couldn't proceed any further because I wasn't actually applying. So the business yesterday in Huna that went through it, he had everything ready to go. So I did not see that. And that would be something I need to check on.
Yeah, because I have the the original application that Credit Union 1 was put out, and but it seems to have changed a little bit. So I'm wondering if there's more information that's needed on this one. Then am I going to run into the same issue again if I get to a place where I have to stop it? It didn't seem like you could save your application and go back to it. So
okay,
maybe I just didn't get far enough, or is that something we kind of need to know? So we started.
We'll get clarification on that and get back to you. My understanding was that you could save your work before you hit submit, at least previously, and I've not seen that, but we will take a look at that. But the new application and the changes should make it easier. So if you've got the CU1 application that you're working from as a template, that should get you pretty much everything you need to be prepared to do the AK Cares Online. But let us get back to you, and then we'll get the information back to the chamber to send out.
Okay, that'd be good. Another question. It was kind of unclear on what about unemployment, because I was able to finally get signed up for the unemployment, but now as of last week, that $600 ran out, and I mean, I'm still getting the minimal amount from the state. But what is the they put so many restrictions on what you can use this money for, that my business being a charter business, a lot of my major expenses get paid at the beginning of the year. You know, things like advertising and insurance and all that. And but they're saying you know, those don't qualify anyway, but that's kind of required for our business. So,
So
how does unemployment affect what we can do with this money? I mean, can
So
if I can't pay
receiving-
myself? Yeah, go ahead.
receiving unemployment as an individual will not make you ineligible for the Alaska Cares Grant for your small business. However, you cannot request funds to cover payroll costs for a period when unemployment was received. So if you are filing for unemployment and you received the funds, you can't ask in that grant, you know, where you're putting in as an eligible expense payroll. If you were paid if you asked for money and you received unemployment in March or April or May, you can't ask for, when you go to fill out your eligible expense forms, for payroll during that period if you received unemployment.
Okay, can I?
But if you didn't receive unemployment, let's say going forward, if you're filling out the application today for the next 2 months, that could be a future expense if you're not going to receive unemployment. But if you received unemployment, you can't use that time period, but if you did not, you can.
Okay, so if I didn't apply for the next few weeks, then I could call it, but that would be in the future, so that would be a future expense.
Right. And again, I'm not telling you to do it or not to do it. I'm just telling you that not to double dip.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I was
Okay.
just, but you know, can I go off of, you know, not apply, you know, I mean, I could tell unemployment that I had other funding coming in and they're not going to give me for that week, so.
Right.
Oh,
They're wonderful that way.
So yeah, it's still kind of unclear. So yeah, my other question was about his credit union one, the only one working on this, but it sounds like, because I testified at that House committee meeting that they had when they were talking about making these changes, and that was one of the big questions. Like, you know, they've only got this one provider doing this. I mean, whose idea was that? You know, they're the only ones.
Just to answer that question, they put an RFP out to the entire state of Alaska for entities willing to process. They only received one response, so
Wow.
that's why they only ended up with one processor, and they brought on extra staff, but it's just too big of a deluge with too many issues attached to it.
From what I've seen of the numbers, there's only been very few loans given out and not much money that this has actually gone out yet. So
they're keenly aware of that shortcoming.
Yeah. Okay.
I think people give up trying.
Well, I have a question.
I hope not. Go ahead.
If it's unclear from the informational sheet, but are applicants required to open a business account at Credit Union One, or will they issue a check that can go into a qualified business account?
So are you talking about a past application or a future application?
Future.
Okay, so future application, the state of Alaska is handling those payments. And so my understanding is that they will issue a paper check. And then if for some reason that's not acceptable, there's a way to do it electronically, but that's going to add more time. So that's my current understanding based on a call Tuesday.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Yeah. I know there was a lot of people who applied for that PPP loan right when it came out, and some people got, you know, 5,200. Some people got 6,000. So that cuts you off from this loan. Is that correct? Or from this grant?
Today, the answer is no, as long as you return any funds exceeding $5,000.
Okay, so if a person got 5,200, if you return 200 to the bank, then right now you're eligible?
That is correct.
Does that include interest?
What was
Does that
that?
include interest to the loan?
You know, the bank asked me that same question. What kind of interest did we have on that loan? And was it incurred or was it another kind? But yeah, I think that does include interest.
And is it the interest over the term of the period? I mean, and what documentation would be needed to prove that you're at the $5,000 threshold or lower?
Right. Again, I'm not a decider, but I'll tell you, I've heard zero conversation about interest. What they're talking about is if you received more than 5,000, you return the amount that you received that's above the 5,000. So all those other nuances, nobody's trying to make this difficult. They're trying to find, you know, a way to get through this Gordian knots. They don't even have, they've not yet definitively told us what proof they want of the returned funds. And so absent that, I have told them that the advice that I'm giving to people is to not return the funds yet, but to be prepared to return the funds, submit the application, but don't expect to receive any money till you've proved that. But that way you know you're approved and you know how much you're approved for, because there are people that have received $20,000 or $30,000 of PPP that would gladly exchange that for $100,000 from Alaska
Right.
Cares. And so, but at the same time, I would never tell someone to go put that on their credit card in the hopes that the government program was going to come through for them. So we're working through some of those. And if you're one of those people, let's continue that conversation. But I am not telling anybody anything to do, period. But I'm certainly not suggesting that they try to return funds yet before they know what they can qualify for from Alaska Cares. So get with us if that impacts you.
Hello,
Robert?
I have a question. Excuse me, this is Diane. Just to clarify, the entire application is online. It is not downloadable and fill it out and send it in and send in receipts, et cetera, et cetera. Am I understanding that right?
I think you're understanding that correctly, but they are working toward a downloadable application for rural areas. So I have not seen that yet, but I have heard that they've acknowledged that that is something that needs to be done. But they've been trying to get this rolled out. The vast majority of people can access it online. That certainly is the quickest way to do it. But I believe there will be a hard copy opportunity in the near future.
Okay, and then in reference to what Scott was saying with his issue when he was filling it out, and it wasn't savable, and you said you were going to follow up on that?
I wrote that question down, as did Heather, so we'll find out if that was a temporary glitch or a program fix that needs to happen. So that's one of the questions I've got to, well, actually, those are the two questions I've got written down that I've not heard resolved yet. Is there a downloadable app, and can we save the work in process? So we'll follow up with that on as soon as
Okay, awesome. So how will we find out those answers, or when will we know that?
we will communicate with the chamber, and the chamber will get that word out. Or you can contact Heather by email, and we'll contact you directly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Robert.
Oops, this is Denise. I have a follow-up question on something Heather mentioned. So for the eligible expenses that are already paid, you said when you put in the creditor's address, that would be the business that's applying for the loan. Is this correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so if you're looking for reimbursement, you are the creditor and it's your address. Because you've already paid it, you want the money back.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you owe someone money, you put them as the creditor and fill out the information, and the check will be sent to them. But future expenses, unless you have worked out with somebody and they've sent you, how much it would be, a PO or something, you're going to be the creditor there as well for future expenses, because you're going to be paying the money out.
I just had another quick comment that Credit Union One, after some time of a lot of confusion with their applications, they put out a series of 2 or 3 videos that went through the applications and answered a lot of those questions, and they were pretty helpful. I think some of the things have changed, but I remember that was one of the issues they covered was, who's who to fill out on that line. So
That's correct. It was
yeah,
on,
I think it was Chamber or Liz Cabrera or somebody sent out an email last week that had, I think, a link to those videos. So but they're
when
on
you
YouTube.
went to Credit Union One's website and filled out the application, when you went from one step to the next, under each step, there was a link to how to fill it out. The problem now with the videos would be that those forms no longer look the same.
Right.
But
I
that
think
information was on there. That's correct.
yeah, they still might have some valuable information though, because I think that was one of the issues that was covered is what do you put on this line if it's already been paid? You put yourself as the creditor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so following up on that, so for future expenses, if it's GCI or APT and it's about the same amount every month, then that's what you would list for future?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have can I go? First of all, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Do you have a sense of the percentage of success rate so far of people applying for this?
Quite high, quite high. There's been very few that have been outright denied. Now, there's been quite a few that have not been funded at the level that they had hoped for, dreamed about, or even applied for. But I have not, because people that get denied, they're often the ones you hear from, right? And so I've only heard from a couple in the region, and we've actually encouraged them to appeal that decision, because just becoming denied is not the last word. It may be very accurate, but there is an appeal process. So even for expenses that you get denied, you can appeal those as well. But it's just, the success rate is very high for receiving funds.
Sun's coming out. But on the appeal process, just to follow up on that, if you do have an item that was rejected, you can appeal that and your application will continue forward. It will not stop your application from moving ahead. So don't be shy about doing that. Also, for the question, if you already paid a creditor, who should I list on the schedule of expenses? The actual creditor or myself? On that packet that you can click on at the Alaska Department of Commerce, that informational sheet and checklist. It's about on the 4th page at the bottom, but that question is answered there as well. Just so you know that.
So Heather, I'm confused about the time frame of the eligible expenses.
Okay. So March 11th, which was the date the governor decreed this an emergency, to the application date, so the day you're applying for the loan, for the grant, sorry, and then for 2 months after. So it would be from March 11th to August 7th, and then August 7th through October 7th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? And certainly you have our contact information. So, email is really the best way to articulate a question that we can then pass on and get a definitive answer to. So it's not that we don't want to talk to you, but it's harder for us to ask someone a question that you've passed to us and start playing the whisper game. So, because then the answer that comes back may not exactly match your question. So do put those questions to email, send them to us directly or through the chamber. We're very supportive of the chamber's work in the community, and we want to make sure that Petersburg gets all the resources possible. So don't hesitate to contact us with any questions going forward. And if there is a need or opportunity to come down, we're very happy to come to Petersburg and sit near Dave's palm tree.
I like that.
It's a lot sunnier out here at Papke's.
Yeah. I did put my email in the chat, so it is there for anyone that needs it.
Thank you.
I don't have it yet.
All right. Well,
thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and this is
Very happy to
recorded.
be here.
So we will, we'll get this downloaded and available for anyone that, was interested that was not able to participate during the lunch hour here today. So you'll be able to review that, and we'll stand by to see how we can help.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
Great.
Robert.
Yeah,
Thank
y'all have a
Thank
great,
you.
Thank you.
great weekend.
Yeah, thanks.